Okay, guys, welcome to another episode of the Fishpodcast. It's me, your host, Felix Frey, and Sean. And tonight we have a special guest with us. What do you say, Sean?
We have a very, very special guest. We have the one and only Siegfried Schön. I hope I pronounced the last name correctly.
Yeah.
And he is currently being a big buzz on the internet, especially on social media, because he caught one hell of a pike. And today we're gonna ask him as much as we can about that stunning fish, because it was one hell of a fish. Siegfried, you caught a 1 meter 38 centimeter pike, which is amazing. It's bigger than the Dutch record so far. But before we ask you anything about that pike, I think it's good to you introduce yourself. Tell us who you are, where you live in the Netherlands, not specifically with street and address and stuff, because just the basic stuff. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I'm Siegfried. I was the weekend before my 40th birthday. I caught that pike. I smoke salmon for a living. I live in Belgium, just across the border nearby Breda.
Cool.
It's a 40-minute drive from my home border where I fish in the Netherlands. And
That's because that's where your Instagram name comes from, right? Head Fish House.
Head Fish House. Yeah, I wanted to try that professional, but it's a business to business, business, and
Yeah.
so we don't deliver to consumers, and that's why I starting to post a little about my life and hobby, and that's little accelerates a little to more than to pike than to
Exactly.
salmon.
I haven't seen any smoked salmon so far I can recollect on your Instagram page. It's mostly really pike and really cool GoPro footage. So yeah.
Thanks.
So if we just kick off, that pike is the dream pike of, I would say, every pike angler out there. How was it having that in your hands, realizing that triumph that you just had be able to go through?
It was when I took it out of the net, I thought this is for sure a 1 meter 30 pike, and that was my goal. That was my dream, but it was really heavy. So I thought maybe it's 1 meter 31, 1 meter 32, and then on the measure board, it almost goes to 1 meter 40 on, exactly a few millimeters. It was 1 meter 38 and 6 millimeters, and
Wow.
that was a very strange. It was like I call it like you're a little drunk. It's like winning the jackpot. It's a lottery.
Wow.
Yeah.
But you stayed so calm because you put up two small clips. I think it was from a GoPro footage, like one in the boat and one you had like clam in your mouth or something, you know?
Yeah. I
And
saw
then
that by surfers. Surfers do that.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
you got also a special tool for it. You can buy it from GoPro.
Yeah.
And I like to buy that because the best, how do you call that, footage, you can film straight out of your head.
Best
Exactly.
point of view.
It's the most natural point of view. Yeah, but you stayed so calm with that fish. You know, you landed that fish and it was in the net. And by the time it was in the net, like you said, you must have realized that it was a 1 meter 30 pike. I mean, it was massive. It was like it was a freak of nature, if you could call it like that. It was such a
Exactly.
giant.
It was really the measure board was on the top and the bottom side was gone. So I filmed the fish from left to right, and I pressed the belly a little back to trying to see the numbers when I filmed along it. So it was unbelievable. It was really freak of nature. It was really a fluffy pike, and there's an old pike angler and an old very good pike angler and pike journalist, Jan Eggers.
Yeah.
And he told me when the pikes come from deep, the how do you call that in English? The blaze,
The
bladder.
Bladder. Yeah.
the bladder, is pushing air out, and then you got a very fluffy pike, a very like somebody who gets
Like inflated or outflated, like
outflated.
yeah.
So the density of the pike was gone. So it was a very fat, like a very fat person, a fat fluffy belly.
Squishy.
Yeah.
Oh wow.
So how long have you been trying to get a pike like this?
Yeah, I don't know. It's you can better ask me how long do I dream about this pike, and you never really couldn't dream to catch this pike. So you just can see it in books, on old black-white pictures from the old days, and there's sometimes in Germany or in Ireland a few years ago there were caught pikes maybe this long, but it's I don't know, it's a goal you always dream about, but to catch it, it's not realistic.
It's unreal. It's unreal. I mean, it was at 1 meter 30, like you said, aiming for that 1 meter 30 mark. That's for like every pike angler's dream.
Yeah.
But getting a fish like this it just blew everyone away. And in a way, I have to say that a lot of us Dutch guys knew that in the coming years, a pike like this would eventually turn up, because the previous official stated record from Nico Molkens was 1 meter 34. And we're all like, okay, this might take a couple of years, but there will come a pike which might exceed that 1 meter 37.5.
That's what I think also, because the water is getting better for pike.
Yeah, it is.
And the water is getting also by us in the region a little saltier, so that that how do you call it in English? Attracts more fat fish.
Yeah.
What grows the pike faster and bigger and fatter.
Yeah.
So
and
what
also
was
the clarity, the clarity as well also helps a lot, I think. I mean,
very
it's been it's very. I always make the comparison, like they used the pike were there already, but not growing that fast, because they had a refrigerator where the light was still broken, and they had to find their food in the dark, and all of a sudden the light got fixed, and now they can just find and feed and grow to immense sizes. So the previous records, Felix, was 1 meter 37.5, but it was disputed if that was actually the length of that fish. So I think like 3 or 4 years to actually crossed off that so-called official record. And it was reclaimed by also, I don't know, I see a Belgian guy or a Dutch guy, I don't know for sure. Nico
Molkens is a Belgian guy, I think.
Also a Belgian guy. Those Belgian anglers are getting our big pike. It's just, we Dutch guys need to step it up. But it was 1 meter 34, which is also a really amazing story. He was fishing with a fly the entire day, and he got one take.
It was a very nice pike, huh? It was a very beautiful pike. From Nico Molkens. It was very, very tight, very muscled pike. And it called also. He caught it not so deep. So the thing that Jan Eggers told me with that with the air going out, with the bladder, maybe.
And also Nico caught it in March, like on the flats, on the shallows, but on a fly. Fly.
That's insane. That's so cool on a fly.
You were talking about the depth you caught it. Are you willing to tell us anything about the depth that you caught it in?
Yeah, no problem. I always fish very how do you call it, common. When you go further into October, you're going further deeper into the water. I don't go into harbors or small creeks. I go in back on the big water and fishing deeper, and this was on a drop off to the industry driving zone for big boats.
Shipping lane.
Above shipping lane, above I think 12 meter water or something, and then half water, very tight to the drop off.
Cool.
That's it.
Yeah, that's usually a really good tactic to get the big ones. And like you said, especially in October, November, when fish are getting deeper and deeper and are moving around the big schools of bait fish, then it's a really a good tactic to target those big ones. Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
So, is it generally, I saw on the videos that you were trolling, of course, and is that a method that you prefer hunting big pikes, or is it a method that you do at this time of the year?
No,
or maybe both.
I like to troll because I think the most big pikes I caught was trolling, and I caught, of course, also meter plus pike casting, but I like trolling because I watch a lot of films from Sean also. Trolling, it's not a secret. It's very
Super effective.
super effective. But how do you call it? Very leerzaam, learnable to watch YouTube. And I don't like, or I like a lot, but I got a little onzeker. How do you call that in English, Sean?
Insecure. Yeah, insecure.
Yeah, insecure with water rules attached to your line, a lot of rings and other steel stuff. So I like to minimalize your stuff on your line to fool those big fish. And when I watch those films by the water rules, I watch a lot of films on YouTube, and then you see that the big pikes, out of curiousness, bite in bait, in cameras. They follow, they go away, they come back, they sniff around, but they don't bite through, and that's why I don't use cameras, and I like to use the best bait there is that. Not that looks very realistic. Yeah,
as natural as possible.
Natural.
Yeah, and also
natural.
I can agree on the fact on the part that when you troll and you have all that extra hardware and terminal tackle in front of your bait, it does something with the realism of the bait itself. So if you want to keep it as natural as possible, you probably want to rig it up with some fluorocarbon and just attach it really smoothly towards your main line. But when you have like a water wolf camera in front of it, like in a lot of setups that I use, you usually have to attach the water wolf to your main line. Then you have to put an extra leader to create some extra distance. Then you have the swim bait attached to it. And that's a lot of moving parts, and it makes a lot of noise as well. It gives a lot of vibration in the water as well. Mm-hmm. And especially, I think, on high-pressured lakes, it can make a difference for sure. Yeah.
So, you got enough big pikes for sure. So, but it's my what was it? Onzekerheid.
Insecurity. Yeah.
My security. So and the water where I fish is very, very busy. We meet each other there for I think a year or something, or 2 years.
Yeah.
And but it's always busy. And the ramp where we trail off with the ramp where we go in with the boat, it's going to close now also because of the busyness there.
What? From fishing with boats or what?
Yeah, there are multiple ramps, but it's the problem is there's so many people fishing over there. So many, not only Dutch guys or Belgian guys, but also from France or from Germany, UK, Italy, you name it. Everywhere across Europe, people are fishing on that lake, and now the locals are actually complaining about the lack of parking space. And there's always people early in the morning making a lot of noise. So there have been a lot of complaints.
Shit. Yeah, you should go to the Swedish forests. No one will see you. No one will hear you. No one will care.
But it makes it more impressive, Siegfried, that you it's so much pressure on that lake, and you still got it. So hats off.
So, very. So when you're trolling
of the lake,
when you're trolling, Siegfried, are you using several rods, or are you focusing on one or two? Or I just want to know, you have 3 rods. What's your basic tactics when you go out? How do you go out for a day, and how do you start? Do you have a favorite bait that you always put on? Do you switch around, or how does your general fishing go when you start off?
When I didn't have any action, a few hours further, then I will switch some baits. But normally I put the baits onto my main line in the harbor, and then I drove to a little creek, and then I start trolling, and then I'm gonna start playing with my telephone, drink some coffee, and take a breakfast, and then I'm very patient normally, but when there's no any action, I'm starting to how do you call it, experiment with some other baits, but it's always swim baits, but just a little deeper or a little shallower. That's all.
Do you use any weights to get them up and down?
Yeah,
like lead?
Lead. Yeah, I've how do you call it? Elastic, little gummy. I attach that to my main line, 3 or 4 meters in front of my bait. Yeah, and that's about 60 to 80 grams.
All right. And how much do you get it down then? How much do you push your bait? In which depth?
The colder it gets, the deeper it gets. And then in winter time, I have from Scotty the small lake trawler.
Yeah.
I started with that a long time ago, and my fishing mate made me out of an idiot, but it works, and it's actually straight down under the boat, and then a few meters behind the boat, but not very long. So it's very very good with how do you call that? With a strike. You haven't less losers.
You lose less fish.
Yeah.
All right. So not so far away. The bait is quite close to the boat.
Yeah, but very deep. You can fish very close to the bottom. And then
it has a lot of benefits. Yeah, because also in October, I don't know if you recognize the same thing, is when you fish in October, we have a lot of vegetation in the Netherlands, but in October it dies off. It's either from dying off or the swans. The swans are a huge problem as well, because on a lot of lakes the swans are picking the vegetation loose, then it starts floating around, and that's like the worst nightmare for every guy that likes to troll. But with the downrigger, with the lake trawler or the ones from Canon, you fish close to the boat, that's true, but you have less problem with the vegetation because the steel cable just cuts right through it, and then you have less vegetation, less deck grass on your line, which does happen when you're using planer boards or paravans. So it's one. Are you not using benefit.
Any with those 3 baits, Siegfried? Are you not using any planer boards at all?
Not on my water because of the vegetation. But in wintertime, I use also planer boards, and then I will fish also with heavy weighted sheds.
Cool.
Very slow sheds with 50 grams on it or something, and then very slow trolling on a planer board. Yeah, I will do that, but not much, because planer board. It's
how slow do you go in the winter time? Because that's interesting to me, because what I noticed
3 kilometers an hour, and but also with a planer board, I like to zigzag. Over my drop-offs, and that's very heavy with your planer board, because when your planer board is further away, you didn't see the depth of your drop-off, so then you often take very lots of plants, vegetation or bottom, and so you have more control.
True, you can steer directly have more control and steer directly over the drop off. Yeah, that's totally true. But that's interesting also with the speed, like 3 kilometers for us Dutch guys. I think it's more common now, but 3 kilometers an hour for us Dutch guys used to be very slow. But for Swedish standards, that's like 2 knots or something. That's quite fast for Swedish standards. I have a lot of Swedish guys.
Around 4.5. I don't know.
How much is 3 kilometers? Like 1.5 or something?
No, not really. Like 1.8 knots or something.
1.8. So
I think 1 knot is 1.8 kilometers.
So it's slow. It's slow. You mean, Sean?
Yeah, well, in Sweden it's like 1.6 knots. That's like the slow, the normal. That's fast for those
Yeah,
guys. Yeah, and
that's fast for that's fast for us. And if you go,
yeah,
how fast do you fish summertime?
4
Four
kilometers an hour.
kilometers?
Yeah,
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 that's
four,
fast.
4.5.
yeah.
Yeah, that's so different towards what we do. But I think our trolling society for pike is not as evolved as you have, and fished in a way different way in areas where the pressure is not the same and vegetations might not be the same. And I've been fishing quite a lot in Holland and those type of waters as well. They're not
Yeah.
really having the same characteristics unless you go to certain spots in my perhaps Vanden or others, but it's not the same type of traffic, bait fish, or water flow, anyways, like we have in general. So it's,
I
but it's
think it
very
also has.
interesting.
I think it also has to do, Felix, with the fact that in Sweden it's more common to troll pelagically, just on big open water and find
Yeah,
those pelagic fish. And then you want to present your bait more slowly because then the fish have time to notice it and get up to it and
yeah,
actually take it. While the style
definitely.
that Siegfried is using, like going up and on and off the drop-offs, you want to cover a lot of ground. And then having a higher speed, like 4 kilometers an hour, makes you cover like 1.5, twice as much ground, and thus it's more effective in the Netherlands. But when you're fishing pelagically, or like we are doing in Sweden, where you're fishing the big open waters, we slow it down as well. Then it's like 2.5, 3 kilometers an hour. So yeah.
Also
Yeah,
in wintertime. In wintertime also.
In wintertime, I actually experimented this time in the Netherlands with maybe that's something you can try as well. Is even slower, like big tailbait, like the burbot from Savage Gear, and then trolling like 1.5, 2 kilometers an hour,
Oh,
and
that's
it's really
okay.
effective. Because you can see them coming up when you use like a downrigger, like the lake troller you're using. You can see the fish coming up. And the interesting thing as well, and that's also what you say with getting the least amount of hardware on your line. The fish that come up and expect it, like slowly rising and expect it, almost never take the bait. But when they go up like a missile, like a straight line upwards,
Yeah.
you can already go straight towards your rod and already lift the rod out of the rod holder because the fish is going to take it, and those takes are super cool. So,
Do
but that's
you,
at really slow speeds.
how do you hook up the fish mostly? So do you let the paravan or planer or bait go, or do you wait a while, or do you just throw yourself on the rod and make a counter strike, or how do you do that best?
Sorry. That part I didn't. You mean when I start trolling? You
No,
mean?
when you hook up with the fish, do you wait a little bit to let the boat with the
No,
movement set the hooks, or do you really
no.
make a
When I
big
see a
counter strike?
strike, I directly take the rod and give it a hit, a very hard hit, because I'm a master in losing fish, and yeah. So that was.
Ain't we all?
Yeah, because what's general here, what I noticed different when I was done with you, Sharon, and we just did a half a day of trawling. Generally here, when they do fishing, trawling for pike, they use very, very soft rods, often glass or fiber rods, and sometimes even like nylon line or fluorocarbon. So everything is very, very weak, and they often let the boat or kayak set the hook while going forward, letting the brake release a little bit.
Yeah.
But with you, Sean, or when I do it often, I use my normal pike rods. They're much, much stiffer, so they don't give away as much.
I
No.
had very stiff rods myself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I guess that changes a little bit of the presentation and the way you hook up the fish as well, right?
Yeah. What do you think? What's the best way or the normal way to do it? Because I haven't a lot of people around who can give me some tips and tricks. So, but I like myself, personal, a very thin, very stiff, hard carbon rod where you feel everything. Because I like also during trolling having one in my hand.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think you want to have a rod that's sensitive but strong at the same time, because you want to, especially in the Netherlands with all that floating, vegetation and stuff, want to know when your bait picked something up. So when the vibration in the rod changes, you pick some debris up or some vegetation, and then that's when a sensitive rod really helps. And my preferred setup is actually really stiff rods, like carbon, like you said. and then long ones because I like to troll with 2 rods up and paravents on it, planer boards. And I usually put my drag down like to the breaking strength. So when I get that hit, I get the most force to penetrate the hook into the jaw of the pike.
Exactly.
And when I got the rods on my hand, and then when I get the fish hooked up, then I will open it up and open the drag, so I got some room to play the pike with, and it's a bit more forgiving when they start shaking and they can actually get some line off the reel. So
yeah. But I can imagine what Felix says when you have a very parabolic rod with nylon line, maybe the fish has the bait in his mouth and the hooks are not over the, how do you call that, Sean? Weerhaak?
Yeah, the barb,
yeah. It needs to take time, but before he feels something strange maybe, it's too late for the pike. So then there's enough tension on the line and the rod, between the line and the rod, to hook the fish without give it a hit.
It's just interesting seeing that there has been a very trolling society within Sweden with that type of gear. I think that is not really what goes on anymore. People are more moving to these better carbon rods, more standard what you would use for casting or just jerkbaiting or whatever, in general, to get that feeling like you say, rather than having these parabolic soft rods with big reels that have, counting meters and everything. It feels like it's changing a bit, and you guys in Holland are, I would say, in the forefront of using that type of technique. You as well, Sean, showcasing that I can work with normal casting gear.
Yeah, it does. And I think there's definitely I think the old style of trolling has a lot of history coming out of the salmon trolling stuff, where they use a lot of the materials you mentioned, but I also talked to some guys, also at Savage Gear, that really think that the old school nylon works better because it makes less noise in the water, which we talked about, having the least amount of hardware in the water, least amount of vibrations and stuff. That's one thing. And also when the pike takes the bait, especially those soft swim baits, it doesn't feel that unnatural because it takes it, and then because there's so much stretch in the line, it doesn't feel that unnatural, and they actually take it like a bit extra, inhale it a bit more, and then slowly So it's a different way to look at stuff, and I think there's something to say for both angle and both ways of fishing. I just prefer the Dyneema, the stiffer way. Yeah, just drag tight and just hit as hard as you can, and then open up. It's for me, it's the most effective way.
Rock and roll.
Exactly. Rock and roll. Yeah. So Siegfried, do you have any tips or tricks for a fellow angler listening that want to succeed doing increasing their personal best? Do you have 3 very important stuff that you want to give to everyone that want to increase their personal best and getting a very nice pike?
I think I am very lucky with the water where I live close to, but so that's the first tip I think that I can give. Search for water where you can expect big pike. And then I think natural bait is very good. So fireballing with big roaches or other nice fish that attracts pike. I think that's very effective. And then further, the third is trolling like we talk about now with realistic baits.
Yeah.
And maybe what I learned now, maybe a little slower than I did.
Yeah, that's right. Well, I think it's good to have all speeds in your arsenal, if you could call it like that, because I do feel that I've been trolling really slow over the past 2 or 3 years. And this season I've been trolling a bit faster than I normally do, and I see an increase in the results. And of course, it's not scientific, but mixing it up helps me a lot and adapting to the situation.
You caught more pikes?
But like I said, when I wanted to cover more ground because I thought the pike were really on the structures, I could focus more narrowly on the structures, and I still use planer boards, but I don't put them as wide as I normally do, because normally with planer boards I want to cover a lot of ground. But like you said, when you're making turns like zigzagging, the inner corner always drops down, and then it's not effective anymore. And then you tend to get but you tend to get a bit lazy, and then you move a bit towards the deeper water, and then you're not fishing get effective anymore. And then it helps down to either decrease the amount of line you have out and put the paravans closer to the boat, or either just ditch the paravans and troll like you mentioned, just zigzag over the drop off, and then you can speed up a little, cover more ground, find the active fish. I think finding the balance between different styles of fishing is the ultimate thing to maximize your results, I think.
And sometimes I said to myself, it's like twitching, but then twitching with your boat. Faster, gas away, and then zigzagging. It's all.
Franz and I usually, especially when we do it in Sweden with the big paravans, it's like being a puppet master. You have all these little puppets on your fingers, and the ones on the one side you're letting them slow down, on the other side you're speeding them up. You're playing around with all these baits at the same time, and that's why I don't get when people say that trolling is boring, because especially when you're the captain and you're driving around and you have to think of all these baits in the water and all these baits you are manipulating. It's hard work. It needs a lot of tactics. It needs to be thought through if you want to be effective, and that's why trolling for me is such a fun thing to do. And I'm glad you like it as well. So it's really cool.
I think it will. I think it will change people's way, because it's so many big fish coming up all the time. It's not a numbers game, but it's definitely the big fish game for sure.
Big fish for sure. Yeah.
Just for big fish, when I caught a fish from 60 to 80 centimeters, I don't know. I forgot it it's not, it's pleasant, but it's not what you do it for. It's this picture what I have now. I watch it right now on my computer, and
those are the fish who will last forever. I mean, those are the fish you will remember when it's rainy out there and the wind is blowing and it's cold, and then you will think about this fish, and then it just pushes you to give that extra hour. So those are the fish you're aiming for. But I'm really interested, because you caught it now. How did you weigh it, or how heavy was it?
It was 23 kilos round. My net without a toll on it, without steel on it, was 650 grams. So it was 23 kilos, 650 grams.
Wow! So Imagine catching that giant in the winter. I mean,
exactly. That's what I thought to myself. Also, 2-3 months later. Yeah.
Wow.
Maybe. Who knows?
Who knows, man? Who knows?
Yeah.
Will it be the new Dutch record, or have you submitted it for that?
Sorry, what?
Have you submitted it
for the Dutch record?
Yeah.
No. I aim for my own record, 1.30 meters, dream fish for me, and then this is something extra.
But you didn't officially apply to claim the record or anything?
Yeah, a lot of people told me that I need to do that, and I get a lot of mails, and so when I didn't do that, it's strange. It's very strange. I need to do it. Why not? It's a record fish, so
yeah. Very cool. Very, very cool to say you had the biggest pike.
So you're still gonna apply, or is it like overdue?
No. I received a mail that I answered, and it came from BNAZ. That's the sport fisher organization in Holland, Sportvisserij Nederland, Sport Fishing Netherlands. Yeah. So I'm curious. Yeah.
Okay, so we have to wait. We have to wait and see if it officially gets approved.
Yeah. I don't know how long it takes normally, but they told me it's with a fat 4 centimeters over the old record. So
It's an amazing fish, and we'll keep our fingers crossed that you get the record. I hope you get it. It's an awesome fish, and well done, man. Well done.
So yeah, well done, man. We're super impressed, and that's what gets us all going and heading out for weekends in rain and weather that sucks to just hunt that fish. So our last question to maybe round this off is, what will you do now when you retire and stop fishing?
I made a joke to my wife, and I said I start going playing tennis now. No, I try to fish further and maybe catch a few more 1.30 pikes in my life, and then I'm very happy. And I like to photograph nature and enjoying also being on the water and then having a few rods around you with the knowledge to maybe catch a pike like this. Yeah, it's enough for me. So
that's humble and very, very, very nice to hear, man. It's I think no one else could have caught that fish better than you, man. It's nice hearing that and hearing your view. It's well deserved.
It's well deserved.
Thank you very much.
And keep going. The water will produce, probably will produce even bigger fish in the future because the water is getting more clear, the salt getting in, and those pike. It's exciting times coming up. But you will have people chasing that record down. But I hope you will stay on it for quite some time. And it's a stunning fish. And don't start playing tennis yet. Keep on pike.
No. Thanks. Very nice. Thanks.
Thank you for joining us tonight.
Thanks.
It's been awesome.
It's been awesome. And if you want to see more cool pike content, because, you talked about the trolling stuff, but I have seen cool videos from you as well with some GoPro footage when you're casting. So, check out Het Vishuis on Instagram. I will put a link in the description of the podcast, and you can check them out. So thanks a lot for joining us, Siegfried.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, man. Have a great evening.
Thank you very much. You too, guys.